Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a review of a wine that I reviewed about 3 years ago. And it's one of my first videos, and I'm actually going to delete that video because it's kind of embarrassing. Even my videos today are not great, but those in the first couple of videos were really bad in terms of the quality of the video. So those will slowly come off my channel, and I will replace them with new videos where I re-review the wine. And it's kind of nice to come back to a wine 3 years later and give you a new review and give you some new insight on this. So the wine that I'm reviewing today is the M. Chapoutier 2016 Crozes Hermitage Les Meysonniers. And so a little bit about the producer. So the producer, M. Chapoutier, it started originally in 1808, but not under that name. The interesting thing, I think it's now 7th to 8th generation, but every person that's managed the estate has the initial M. So it was actually named M. Chapoutier by Marc Chapoutier, who was managing the estate around 1955. It's now managed by Michael Chapoutier. The other interesting thing about the vineyard is that it has the inclusion of braille on the label. And I'm trying to close up to that. I don't know of any other winery that does this. They do this for all their wines, and they've been doing this since 1996. And I guess the reason they did this is that Michael had a famous, I think, entertainment person, whether actor or singer, who kind of told him that he had to go to, whenever he went to buy wine, he had to have a friend. So he thought, well, you know, we should put this on the label. And what they have actually in braille is they have the vintage, the vineyard, the region, and as well as the color of the wine. Crozes Hermitage is in the Northern Rhone region, and it's one of the largest, I think it's the largest appellation in Northern Rhone, but not as famous and not as expensive as Hermitage and also Côte Rôtie, which are a little bit more famous. In general, the wines are a little bit lighter in style. It's still predominantly Syrah, about 85%, and then about 15% you can use white wine grapes like Marsanne and Roussanne to kind of round it out. But I think even though it uses fairly similar grape varietals to Hermitage and Côte Rôtie, the difference is probably just the soil and the quality of the grapes, and because of the quality of the grapes, also how extended the aging is and what type of barrel aging it has. And that also has something to do with the complexity of the wine. So in general, they're a bit more medium bodied and earlier drinking than the much more tannic and fuller Côte Rôtie and Hermitage wines. Crozes Hermitage is mostly made up of large cooperative owners. So you have very few. The Cave de Tain is one of the largest and own about half the grapes in Crozes Hermitage. The other big one is Jaboulet, who generally owns the other half. And then you have people like Chapoutier, who are also there in this region. But in general, they're all the large producers. There are some smaller producers, but not many. There are some famous vineyards, and this is one of them, the Meysonniers. I don't believe this is a monopole, but it doesn't. I haven't seen many others produce Le Meysonniers other than Chapoutier. Maybe it's just not in the market. And I believe that the Le Meysonniers was although it's a trademark name, it's a brand name. It's not a vineyard per se. I think it's a location. It is named after the first owner of that plot of land. Let's look at the cork of this wine. So it's quite a nice cork. This is all caused by me opening it a couple of times. So the cork itself is quite intact. It's a medium-sized cork. This is the bottle, and I'm not sure if you can actually pick up, you probably pick it up on camera, the braille on the label, and then the back. A little bit of information about the winery, not very much. 13% alcohol, so it's fairly light. The wine color, you'll notice it looks a little cloudy. There could be two reasons. One, I re-corked it back in, so I probably have some cork in there. And two, this is kind of at the end of, I poured out the whole bottle, so there could be some sediment. It doesn't taste like there's any flaw in the wine, so I'm not too concerned. If you can see the color, it's still very bright red, lots of youthfulness, maybe a little bit of discoloration around the edges, which is a sign of a little bit of aging, but not brown at all. The wine is aged 12 months. 85% of it is aged in concrete tanks and 15% is aged in barrel. And at that time, it's again one of the first reviews I did. At that time, I did not score it, although I went back to look at the video myself and I did think it was a very accessible wine. And that's one of the great things about rating. Again, when we do a rating system, it's really for me, because let's say I go back to that video. Unfortunately, I have more general comments, but I don't have a score. And that's really, it's not really for anyone else's benefit other than yourself. You can go back and say, oh, at 3 years ago, I rated it at 85 or 88 or 90, and now I rate it how much. And again, that's the usefulness of scores for yourself, not for really for other people. So I enjoyed the wine. It was accessible, and so now it's 3 years later. And so let's see what the wine looks like. I will let you know that I've had this out. I did put it in a decanter with friends, and I had it earlier today. This portion of the wine I did not decant. I just put it back in the bottle and then put it in my fridge, and then it's later on tonight. This should be well aerated at this point. So I can tell you, when I first had the wine earlier today, out of the bottle, really aromatic, nice and beefy. Not a lot of fruit, but a lot of other kind of secondary flavors, herbs, and a little bit of minerality and earthiness. So I think most of the fruit is gone. Medium bodied, but delicious. Everyone thought it was a really high-end wine, and I think we're surprised by the price point of this wine. So let's have a taste and a smell of this wine now. Very aromatic. Again, there is fruit on this wine now. So when I first opened it, it was much beefier. Now it's a little bit more red fruit and floral elements, almost like candy, and a little bit of cranberries, that type of smell. Not as much beefiness in this wine. Well, now that it's opened up, there is a lot of red fruit on this from my perspective. It's the tannins are medium, so it's very accessible, very fruity. So I taste a lot of red fruit. Again, cranberries, red cherries, a little bit of black plums, and then on the aftertaste, I would say almost like a earthiness and almost a tobacco or tar type sensation. It's really neat because it's not a lot of tannins on this wine, so it's very accessible but very fruity. And I actually think I prefer the taste now that it's been aerated a bit. So again, that's the usefulness of tasting many times. When I first opened the wine earlier today, my initial assessment was there's not a lot of fruit on this wine. Maybe Wine Spectator had this rated, I think, at 93 points and drink until 2030. So I was thinking in my mind, maybe that's too late to drink this. It was not that, didn't have much fruit. Now that it's been fully aired, the fruits come back in. So it's nice to assess it again. I think it's drinking very nicely, but I think there's lots of life in this wine still. Yeah, it's drinking beautifully right now. I think it's got a lot of life in it, and the color of it supports that. It's still very bright in terms of the color. So again, unfortunately, I did not rate or give a score to that wine 3 years ago. I know I liked it. My score right now is going to be 91 points on this wine. I think it is drinking at its potential right now. It needs a couple of hours of aeration, and then it's singing. I think it'll hold on for another 3 to 4 years, so I don't agree with Wine Spectator that it'll go to 2030. I think that's going to be a little bit long for it, but I could be wrong. I think it might go to about 2027, 2028, because it's drinking quite nicely right now. So again, maybe I have to drink it again in a couple of years, but right now it's beautiful, 91 points. Really enjoy it at this point, and doesn't need a lot of aeration to enjoy it. Hope you've enjoyed this review. Until next time, happy drinking.